The button has been pushed. We're live.
Are you
Hello,
sure?
everybody. Roy and
Hi,
Shannon.
everyone. Hello. Hello.
Welcome to Red Hoop Talk. We have I'm so excited. We have our first Hollywood star. I'm all like
Woo.
starstruck. We have a good friend of yours and or a colleague, I should say, right?
A good friend of Indian country.
Good friend of Indian country.
Yes, and a native actress. But
and she's a homegirl. She's a homegirl. She's from the IE out here in California. Yes.
So, let's do our normal introduction. Do we have a normal introduction that we usually do when we start?
Well, we've been trying to get a hold of something like, what do you call it?
Music?
Yeah, some music or an intro. We just haven't gotten there yet.
Well, since we don't have that, we just need to introduce ourselves, Roy. To my, whichever way that way is my friend, my brother, Roy Melendez from the Caddo Nation.
Yes.
Hey.
And to my right,
whatever
left,
this way is.
This way is my sister, Shannon O'Loughlin from the Choctaw Nation. Those Choctaws, man, they've nothing but trouble to us. All of us down there in the South, them Choctaws.
Yeah, we kicked your butt, though. Choctaws kicked the Caddo's butt, didn't we?
I don't think so.
Are you sure? So, okay. So
you guys became civilized is what you did. So
unfortunately, I'm still pissed about that. But welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to Red Hoop Talk. And we want to thank you all for coming and watching. We have a great show ahead. We want to hear from you. So if you're watching live, please chat. Tell us who you are, where you're coming from. And be sure you ask questions during our show. And I'm coming to you from the homelands of the Piscataway Nation, and also the Delaware have been around here as well. Roy, where are you coming from?
I'm coming from California. So we have many tribes, but I'd like to recognize the Chumash today because they're very special to me. A lot of Chumash people were my friends. Chief Bob Rivera was a good friend of mine, brought me into the arena as a gourd dancer, and his family has been absolutely wonderful to me. So I wanted to give a shout out to the Chumash people today.
Oh, cool. That's the way to do it, Roy. Just pick out.
There's so many that I could recognize every single week. So I'm just going to go down the list and keep thanking all the people on whose California land we're saying, because the California tribes get so pushed under the rug and shuffled away because, we all know who the Choctaws and the Cherokees and the Sioux and the Dakotas and all these tribes, and the Blackfeet and the Crees and the Navajos. But when it comes to California tribes, a lot of them, are not represented well. And there's lots of them.
Hey, am I stuck, Roy?
Yeah, you're stuck. It's at least it's not like a goofy pose. You're like you've got a very pretty profile there, but you are stuck. At least it wasn't goofy.
Okay, well, I'm going to try to
jump back in.
Pop out and jump back in. And why don't you entertain our guests today, or our chat room here?
So the chat room, what's going on in the chat room? Oh, look, big picture of me. That's not good. Let me see. So Lance is in there. Hey, Lance, how you doing, bud? Sarah LeClaire. Oh, hey, happy weekend to you too. And happy Labor Day weekend, right? It's our Labor Day weekend. So we're going to see what we can do to cause some trouble tonight, because I know everybody's got the day off tomorrow. And you don't have to get up early or anything, right? Who we got here? Carolyn. Hello from Riding Mountain, Nice, home of the Ojibwe. Hey, and April, welcome everybody. Thank you, chat room, for coming in. We have a special guest today, And Shannon, when she gets back, we're going to introduce her. But anybody have any questions in the chat room right now? Hold on a second. Let me bring up Shannon. There you go. You're back.
It's magic. Technology sucks when it ain't working.
Yeah, I was looking in the chat room. We've got a few people in there right now. Lance is back, of course.
Hey, Lance, and April as well from Cal State Long Beach.
April from back.
Yes. My old alma mater is where I met April Skinnis, who's Cherokee. And anyway, what did I interrupt?
Nothing. I was just filling up time with absolutely nothing. I was just talking to the chat room.
Wow, Roy. Well, so what there's all sorts of funky things going on here.
Is yours fine? No, yours is fine now. It's fine.
Okay. I hope so.
Yeah. No, you're fine.
Okay.
You're fine, and I'm not flickering, so that's good.
All right. Well, and now my son let the cat in, and hopefully the cat doesn't stay in. Okay. We're gonna get this going, everybody. I know what we can talk about, Roy, before we bring out our wonderful guest.
JD's in there too. Hey, JD, what's happening, bud? Good to see you.
Hey,
so
do you want to talk about the Repatriation Conference a little bit?
Yes, we need to talk about your Repatriation Conference that's coming up.
Yeah, so every year the Association on American Indian Affairs has a repatriation conference. And repatriation is the return of ancestors' remains, their burial belongings, cultural objects, sacred items, and other types of tangible and intangible cultural items back to tribes from museums, from federal agencies, from private collections, from auction houses, from foreign institutions. These items were stolen over the last 200 years, mostly because federal policy allowed people to remove these things because it was illegal for tribes to practice their religions and their cultures. And so anthropologists and others removed these things because they weren't doing the Indians any good, and folks wanted to assimilate tribes. So all these items ended up in museums and academic institutions and in private collections all over the world. So every year the association brings together people from all over, from foreign institutions and from stakeholders all in the United States, including tribal nations, to talk about strategies for repatriation. One of those strategies is through a law that's called the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. This year, it's 30 years old, so it's the 30th anniversary of NAGPRA.
I can't believe it's 30 years old. That's
yeah.
Just like, oh, I remember NAGPRA. I remember it. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's 30 years ago.
It's 30 years ago, and it is known from the work that institutions and federal agencies have done that there are approximately 180,000 ancestors in institutions in the United States. That's just a known number. That's who have reported.
And we've talked about this before, but like most of those ancestors are not even on display. They're just sitting in boxes inside of warehouses, just waiting for nothing. Right. So just disturbed, removed from their grave sites, and put into storage in a box with a number or something on it, right?
Yeah, if they're lucky. I've actually seen some collections in
or they're just mixed up all together.
It was in trash. It was in someone's McDonald's hamburger bag, where a professor was keeping human remains here and there in his desk drawer. It's been pretty offensive how people have treated our ancestors, and so the association works to help support tribes and others for that process of repatriation, which is sometimes not all that easy,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you have parties who aren't very willing, because it seems like there is a generation of people in museum and anthropology work that tend to be a little bit like hoarders.
Well, yeah. They I think that's what they are. I mean, somebody who will go and sit down and dust somebody's grave off until they remove their remains has to be really a tedious kind of, like, there's got to be some kind of a, like, that hoarder mentality, like you said, like they're digging for things and saving things. And when I was a kid, that's when the first time the King Tut exhibit came through LA, and I went to school in Inglewood. I grew up in Inglewood, and we went to the school took us to this thing, and I just remember feeling so uncomfortable. Maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe it's who we are, but I just remember feeling so uncomfortable that they had all of this man's grave items on display. It was, gold and wonderful, and all of this marvelous looking stuff, but it's like there was this real eerie feeling with me that, oh my gosh, this is like all the bad stories that you hear, of what you shouldn't be doing with people's remains and what can happen if you do disturb these things. And it just left me with a very uneasy feeling the whole time. Even how beautiful and ornate all of these things were, it just left me feeling like, oh, they shouldn't have took me there. That wasn't good.
Right. So Glenn is asking about how do you get these items back? So if the items are held by a museum, any type of institution that has received federal money, even if the federal funds came from the CARES Act or federal flood insurance or something, that institution has to comply with the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. And if that institution holds ancestral remains, then they have to do inventories and consultation with tribes. If they have other types of items, then they need to consult with tribes and affiliate those items and return them back to tribes. So it's a process that's pretty clear in the legislation, but a lot of institutions and museums like to interpret it in ways that delays the process and makes it more difficult for tribes.
Of course.
Yeah, there's like a hit list. We have a hit list of 13 top institutions that hold 56% of all the known ancestors.
So
13 institutions.
So how about a campaign of naming these institutions? I mean, is that something that can be, like a boycott kind of thing? Like, hit them in their pocketbooks where it hurts.
Oh, hell yeah.
Is that what you guys talk about at the conference? Probably, right? I mean, I'm not like the first person to think of that, I'm sure. I'm thinking I'm brilliant. Like, hey, Roy's brilliant. Freaking, that's how you do it, right?
Well, it's difficult. So think about this. So people who do this work of repatriating ancestors and having to recreate ceremonies and practices that puts them back in the grave after their journey has been interrupted. Oftentimes, those traditional leaders do not want to bring conflict or controversy. And so sometimes, it takes special care to work with tribes to determine how they want to hold the institutions responsible. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, unfortunately, those institutions take advantage of the fact that tribes do not want to bring controversy around these issues.
You know what? Take it to TikTok.
Take it to TikTok. Here we go again.
That's what I say. Take it to TikTok. Indian TikTok. Here's your we need a list. We need to get that list to Indian TikTok and let them hit them where it hurts, because I'm telling you, Indian TikTok, They got some power over there.
I need to tell you that we were recognized on TikTok by TikTok. TikTok's doing this diversity campaign, and they've recognized the association on that. So they're supposed to help us build some things on TikTok. So more to come about that.
See, I'm telling you.
Boy, I'm gonna make you do the TikTok stuff.
I'll do it. I'm not gonna do any of the dancing though, because it's just not my, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't like to watch you dance.
All right. Well, hey, awesome. Hey, when is the conference?
When's the conference? And it's going to be all virtual this year. It's October the 26th through the 28th. Everything is online on our website, indian-affairs.org. We just closed up our deadline for scholarships, so free registration. But if you're still interested in a scholarship, I think we still have some open. So let me know if you're interested in attending, and can only do that if you have some support. Send us an email and we'll get you a scholarship so you can participate.
Right on.
Hey. So should we move on to our...
It's time.
Yes. You want to sing a song or something?
No.
No. Well, then let me introduce our wonderful guest that we have with us this evening, Kimberly Norris Guerrero. If you don't know her name, you have absolutely seen her face and all sorts of... What's that?
I said, you've seen her. That's for sure.
You've seen her face somewhere. She's a citizen of the Colville tribes out in Washington. She's also Salish-Kootenai and Cherokee. She has been in film and theater. You might know her as Jerry Seinfeld's Native American girlfriend way back when.
And Wilma Mankiller. That's her best one.
And twice she's played Wilma Mankiller, one in the Cherokee Word for Water, where she played Wilma Mankiller, and
we got to play the Glorias trailer too.
And the Glorias trailer. Should we get her on before we play the trailer?
Let's do it. Let's bring her up.
Bring her up. Kimberly, come on up.
Hey,
everybody.
What's up, home girl?
What's up? Hey, everybody in the chat room. I've been watching everybody in the chat room. I'm like ready to get back to this repatriation conversation. This is so fast.
That's gonna be cool. We're gonna talk about it. We talk about it often because that's Shannon's forte and my passion. But we talk about it often. And now that the conference is coming up, it's getting a little more heated. And hey, Native TikTok. Have you been on Native TikTok?
No.
Oh, do you know TikTok?
Kids in my life. I've done the little dances with them.
Okay, so you know TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
Native TikTok is like blowing up. You've got to.
Yeah. Well, it makes so much sense. That's our.
Yes.
We adapt, right? We're natives. We adapt. Like, give us the technology, we'll figure it out and turn it around and make it work for us. So I'm excited to see it.
There's some cool people on there that, because when the social distancing powwows and things were going on, they were doing a lot of, powwow dances on TikTok. So people were doing little, 30-second dances and stuff. And then of course, then there's just all the res talk and just all kinds of cool stuff on
and res news, I'm sure. Just great.
And some news and things. Yeah, it's cool. It's very, very cool. And then you get to see because each tribe has its own culture. I mean, there's some similarities and things, but then every tribe has different cultural differences, even modern day differences.
Oh yeah.
And you get to see all that on Native TikTok. So you get to see different tribes and different peoples, and it's very cool.
Let's talk about Kimberly instead of TikTok.
Let's talk about Native TikTok and repatriation, and let's talk about. I would think that to bring it all together. To bring it all together. One of my passions since I was just as long as I can remember is story, and this is all about story because, like we were talking about Mount Rushmore and the grandfathers behind you, Roy, and that folks, hardcore right wingers that would defend Mount Rushmore, these folks don't know the story. And when you tell them the story, you see the hard surface kind of break. And so much of what we're doing here on Red Hoop Talk, what you're doing and what the association does is about really taking back the story and the sovereignty of our story for the good of everyone. And so story matters, and story is medicine. And when it's misinformation and it's the folks that don't know the stories telling the stories, then it just confuses everybody. And then that's like bad medicine. So, it all kind of goes hand in hand, and telling the story about repatriation, telling the stories, about the differences, this kind of lovely unity amongst all of us Indigenous people here in Turtle Island, but also around the world. And then just the really specific, unique things to, I'm out here with you, Roy, on the homeland of the Cahuilla and the Serrano and the Luiseño and the Tongva, and it's just like that's a whole different, it's just it's all so beautiful, and it all comes back to story, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely right. I love the way you just phrased that, because the stories, once we sit down, when you sit down with another human being, whether they're right leaning or left leaning or whatever, there's this common ground that when you communicate with one another and you tell each other stories and you open up with another human being, you see more similarities and more common ground than you see differences. It's when we don't tell the stories, when we hide the stories, and when the stories have been taken away from one side, that you get what you have today. You get what happens at Mount Rushmore. I understand that those faces that are up there now are important to people because they've been taught that they were important. Their whole culture is based on, their forefathers and their founders and all that stuff. However, the other story is that those forefathers were scratched on top of forefathers that were there for thousands of years before that, and belonged to people and their story for thousands of years before that. Mm-hmm. And that's where the pain is in the defacing of that. Mm-hmm. And the taking away of that. And then on top of it, the insult to injury, the removal of that story and the hiding of that story and not telling that story, and only telling the story of bad protesters that are trying to deface those people, the people that are up there now, not why are they so upset that they're doing that, but those people are doing something wrong versus, why are they doing something appears to be wrong,
Exactly.
So I love that. I love that about the story. And the story is medicine. It is medicine. Once you do sit down with another human being and you tell each other's stories, that's where the medicine is. And that's what we do here. So we want to hear your story. We want to know where you came from, how you got into what you do.
I'll try to go as fast as we can, because I would love to get feedback from you all and talk with our group and make this more of a talking circle, because I love me some talking circles.
Good.
And there's just so much going on in our world right now that to be able to connect with our brothers and sisters out there in the chat room and with you all, I think that's just so important for all of us right now. And for me as a storyteller, I need to I love staying in contact in that way with our people and just kind of keeping the finger on the pulse, like what's going on. But I'm strangely connected to both of you, because I was born in Muskogee, but I grew up in Idabel, Oklahoma, which is in the heart of the Choctaw Nation, which is also the traditional land of the Caddo.
Right.
So I was obsessed as a little girl with going into the creek beds and always looking for arrowheads, which would have been Caddo arrowheads. And it was just it was beyond winning the lottery when I would find anything that even kind of looked like an arrowhead. Even it was just but I got so excited. And we have a really wonderful museum down there that is kind of interestingly, because we're way down there in rural Oklahoma, but our museum was always very forward thinking. And so I think there was some really beautiful dialogue with the Indigenous folks there. And so whenever I found something, I would take it to them and show it to them. And the folks always would be able to. That's really how I understood. Oh, I'm in Caddo land, because I grew up around Choctaw. Speaking. A lot of full-blood Choctaw down there, speaking the language, and I got to grow up dancing with Choctaw, and so it was. that's a kind of a good connection of how museums can work and really, maintain a culture. It's what can happen, the good things and what can happen. So I'm connected with you all that way.
Wow.
Clearly I'm nut. I'm a little goofy. And so,
oh, that's an easy connection.
I found my way to the stage, like kindergarten and that kind of thing. But I was really lucky. I was, the family that I grew up in, just to go back a little bit, my mom and dad were in Tahlequah. My mom got pregnant with me when she was 16, I believe. Great. And you were talking shout out. So it's like, I got a shout out to my Uncle Sonny back on the Colville res in Nespele, Washington, because mom didn't know what to do. And she's like, should I go across the line, have an abortion? Should I, what should I do? And my Uncle Sonny said, no, our people are like the salmon, like she will be able to find her way home. Like have the baby and the baby will be able to find its way home. And so that's really what, at 16, 17, that's what my mom's like, she held on to that. And so she went down and had me in Muskogee at Indian Health Hospital down there. And then I had this really, I don't know, I have missing time, obviously. But I went into a very dire, the health system that back then for orphans, for handicapped people, it was really bad under this evil man named Lloyd Rader, which I sleuthed out in the past few years. But they called my generation the throwaway kids. And it was just extraordinary abuse that was going on in every conceivable way in these orphanages, these places where they had us. I was literally rescued out. There was a master student. I said it was going to be fast so we could get to this talking circle thing. It's a crazy story though of like how I'm actually even here. But this man was studying at OU. He was a master's student and he was from Scandinavia. And I'm sleuthing this out. I'm actually talking to people who did the Throwaway Kids for CBS back in the 80s and blew this whole thing wide open. These amazing storytellers, journalists that blew this whole story open about Lloyd Rader. And I've been talking with him this summer. And so there was this man that he was probably getting, I believe, his PhD. No, he wasn't a master's. He's getting his PhD. He was from Norway or Sweden. Unfortunately, my adoptive parents have both passed away. I can't ask them details, but he rescued me out of this bad situation. He broke into the Health and Human Services office and took me out of the Indian file and put me into the white college educated baby file. Wow. Because he knew that my parents were coming up next, like they were going to get the next kid. And he knew I needed to be down in Idabel with them. Because anybody that knows Oklahoma, Idabel is like badass. Like you do not jack with McCurtain County. And like people were afraid to come play basketball in Idabel. And I love that. I love Idabel. I love being from there. But we have a reputation as being badass. And even more so back then, it was like, well, you better. So it was like, this man's like taking me out, putting me with this family that I grew up in. And just knowing like, if they try to come get this kid away from this family, it's like, they're going to go out with their guns and like, and they don't like the feds would not go into McCurtain County back then. I mean, not even the 80s when they were telling me the story of doing the story, the actual story for CBS. So it was ABC. I'm sorry, it's ABC 2020, the Throwaway Kids. Anyway, so it's just been this really crazy, like I Forrest Gump my way into this life, and just like. And so I grew up with this family. My mom started our first community theater. So it was like my dad and my brother, they had a child by birth. And then mom couldn't have any more kids. And so they adopted me. And so I got to grow up on stage with my mom. And she was brilliant stage director. And my dad was an amazing actor. And my brother was amazing. My brother was like Snoopy in the high school. And he was like the starting quarterback and Snoopy and Charlie Brown, So it was like, I just grew up in a really cool, creative family that was clearly very supportive of me being involved with my Native heritage. my mom would take me out to sit with the Choctaw moms at the Choctaw Cultural and grandmas at the Choctaw Cultural Center. And I would learn to bead or weave and I would sit there for, in the afternoons with these folks just speaking Choctaw all the time. And I got to dance with them growing up. So I got really, just this extraordinary education. And then my mom, Shannon, I think I showed you a picture of my mom when I was about 4. I mean, clearly it was like, I was like an Indian girl in a very white family. And so I knew something was different, but when she told me that I was adopted, mom and dad told me I was adopted. They told me that I was Indian, and I was so excited because this was like 1972. I mean, it was like, yes, yes. It's just like Cher was on horseback, not that she's Indian, but I mean, it's like this idea of like in the Indian, we were the warriors, the Idaho warriors, and our cheerleaders we're all this like, you can imagine it was like bad Coachella, you're a kid and you're just like, yes, I want to be that. And just the idea of being Indian, kind of came first. And just this idea of loving the land and loving nature and being able to communicate with nature and communicate with each other. And then growing up around Choctaw people and loving Choctaw people. So it was like the best news that I was there. Yeah, there. So that's me. That's me in my Choctaw outfit.
Look at that. And, Southern girl. Southern
cloth. And then, what's neat about that is I grew up, another one of really close family of ours was Lakota Sioux. How they ended up in Idaho, I still have to ask Miss Fuller that. But I grew up.
You a long ways from home there.
That's right, the Fuller family. So her mom beaded that for me, and so it was like I got a little both, like a little Lakota and Choctaw going on there, which is really cool. But yeah, so my great grandfather and my great-great-grandfather were chief of our tribes. And my mom had found this book about my heritage. And so this is when mom and dad told me that I was adopted. And she, you're adopted. We love you. Here's your family. And opens this book and shows me this picture. Shannon, I think it's that of my great-grandfather on horseback. And I was like, okay, all right. And right next to that, now we're talking about repatriation and that whole concept of who tells the story. Mm-hmm. So it was, I believe, the Jesuits, I think, that had written this book. And they said that my great-grandfather, Coxet George, was married to my great-grandmother, Christine George, who was the great-granddaughter of Chief Seattle. And so they kept referring to her as an Indian princess. So I'm like, okay, I come from chiefs. It's like, not only am I an Indian, I'm an Indian princess. Okay.
You may be the only legitimate Indian princess.
Right. There's like no such thing, but to a 4-year-old, we don't know. So it's just like, and remember y'all, because we're all of the same age. Remember that we had that Walt Disney thing, like on Sunday, the Wonderful World of Disney would come on. And so, the Disney princesses were big back then too. It's just like, all right, so I'm an Indian princess. So that's a little bit different. Like, it's not about me. It's about how do I serve the people? I'm thinking this at 4, 5, 6 years old. And then I went on this road trip when I was 6, 7 with my mom and my brother. We went we went through all the way kind of up through Montana and stuff. And we went to Seattle, and God bless her. I said, can I go see Chief Seattle? And so we went to the island, Bainbridge, and we went to his grave, and they let me go there by myself. And, as a kid, they were standing off, and I was able to weep and connect with him. And this in my mind at 6 years, 7 years old was what I felt like I heard him say. I don't understand why these people do what they do. And we've sent you. We've sent you. So you need to go and you need to listen and you need to build the bridge between our people and the people that you're being raised with and the people you're growing up around. And I'm just like, okay, all right, okay, I can do this. I'm like, and I also I remember doing this. So I go, but I just want to stay with you. I just want to stay with you. And So it was just, it set me off on this really unique track of like my antennas up all the time. And granted, I mean, that's, it's a 6-year-old's perception of history and who's telling the history, but it really set me on a path that I'm still on to this day of just walking with an open heart and an open mind and connecting with our people and connecting with what's going on, and then trying to build that bridge of understanding and be that bridge of understanding. And so the combination of this pressure, a good pressure, responsibility is a better word, responsibility and purpose, right, combined with me being goofy, I'm like, you know how I could do that? I could be an actor. I could be on television, just like the kid Mikey on the cereal commercials. And I could everybody sees him. And so I got it in my head. Like, I want to be on TV one day. I'm going to be in movies one day. And that will be a way that I can talk about, who we are as a people and reach out to people. And so I got that in my head. I found remember the Rand McAnally atlases?
Oh, yeah.
Google Maps.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, okay, flipping through there. I'm like, there's Hollywood. And we're also, of course, Oklahoma, right? So we're huge football fans. And right around that same time, the UCLA USC football game was on around Thanksgiving time. And I saw the pom-pom girls with the blue and gold pom-pom, going out there. And I'm like, that's what I'm going to do one day. I'm going to go to UCLA. I'm going to be a pom-pom girl. And I'm going to be in TV and film. And then I don't know what. And so that was the story I told myself. I'm going to go to UCLA, be a pom-pom girl, I'm going to do some TV, some movies, and then I don't know what. And so, it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Again, Forrest Gumping my way into this. And so I ended up going, that was us at homecoming. So I ended up going to UCLA. I ended up trying out for pom-pom girl. There were like 7. It was just crazy. And so
look at you. Let's take a minute to just look at this picture.
And this is homecoming. So this is only from about 5-10 years ago too.
Blonde.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the thing. It was like, I got in my head, I'd never considered myself, we're going to get there about Wilma Mankiller, but it's like, Wilma always said, don't let anybody define you. Her parents taught her that, you define you. And so, but I'm so grateful that I had enough. I always tell the students that I work with that my superpower is goofy. And so it's just, I'm just goofy enough to think, I didn't think, oh, you can't do that because, all of this stuff, there's nobody on television that looks like you or whatever. So, so I went to UCLA, and while I was on the court for basketball, Reggie Miller, talk about age me. Reggie Miller was a senior at UCLA when I was on squad. And so we had a really great team, and we had a lot of people coming to our games, and a casting director came and saw me and brought me in for an AT&T commercial. And I got it. And that's how I got my SAG card. I didn't know anything about Screen Actors Guild. I didn't know anything about anything, but that was how I got my break.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. This is an actual movie story.
Forrest Gumping my way through things. And, it's interesting to connect that again to Wilma. So maybe we can get talking about Wilma and the Glorias and then get into our chat room is when I was cast as Wilma, obviously, again, the pressure and the purpose feeling me so deeply of how does anyone do this, much less how do I do this? But in all my research about Wilma, I was watching all this documentary footage that the producers gave me, and obviously my Uncle Tommy from Tahlequah, and my biological family worked with Wilma at when she was chief. And so just all these different stories, but I found consistently she was saying, I'm a cheerleader. And I was like, yes, because how can anybody be Wilma? But I am a cheerleader. I can do that. And that's my driving passion. It's that's why I want to connect with our chat room, because I love hearing from people and understanding what it is they want to do and cheering them on to do that. So that kind of connects me to Wilma. So I just kept doing television and then film, and I don't know what ended up being Broadway, which is nuts. My my adopted mom, Kay, was she had lung cancer when she was 67. And so I moved back to Oklahoma and helped her make her journey. And I was back there for between like February through July when she passed. And I had been, right after that, Steppenwolf was calling. This is Steppenwolf Theater in Chicago. And Tracy Letts, who you may know from Lady Bird and Ford versus Ferrari. He's an incredible actor, but he's also a Pulitzer Prize winning playwright. He wrote this play, August Osage County, for the Steppenwolf Theater Ensemble. And they kept calling me to audition for this role. And I kept turning them down because my mom was sick. And then she passed away. And then my father-in-law got sick. Well, he had been sick from liver cancer, but so then I helped him make his journey along with his family, with his side. And the day that I was supposed to audition finally, my dad, Bob, my adopted dad, I said, Dad, Steppenwolf is asking me to audition for this play. I'm like, I haven't been on stage. At that point, I probably hadn't done a play in like 6 years. And I was like, this is freaking Steppenwolf. This is John Malkovich and Jeff Perry and Amy Morton and Rondi Reed and Fran. I mean, these are like, this is who I, as an actor, I mean, they are just like the pantheon. Like, I can't go to Steppenwolf. I'm going to stink the place up. They don't deserve that. And my dad said, well, this is after Mom passed away. He said, well, you know how happy that'd make your mom for you to get back on stage. And I was like, okay. All right, I'm going to say, I called him up right then and there. I called my agent. I said, okay, I'm going to go in on the audition. And then my father-in-law passed away. So I called up the casting director and I said, look, I have been up with my father-in-law making his journey, passing away for the last 2 days. I haven't gotten any sleep. I'm not off book for the audition. Just, there's so many wonderful women that you're going to see, actors that you're going to see, for this role. And just, Godspeed, and we have a great show. And she's like, Erica Daniels, casting director, Steppenwolf, she's like, Kimberly, our heart goes out to you, but you have to come in to audition for this. Like, I don't care if you I don't care if you fall asleep in the audition, just come, you have to come in and audition for this. And she goes, wouldn't you? And this is pretty gutsy. She said, wouldn't your father-in-law want that for you? Yeah. Yes. Like, how do you even know that? But yes. And so, I married into the Guerreros, and Guerrero means warrior in Spanish. And there's such warriors, and his dad was just such a badass warrior. And so, yes, he'd want me to go out there and do it. And so I went and auditioned. And of course, when you're tired and exhausted and your ego is out of the way, you do your best work as a performer. And so I just went in there without any ego, without any trying and the thing was, here's the thing. I was playing a Native woman, a Cheyenne woman from Oklahoma, who's basically hired to help a woman pass away from cancer. So I had just been living that reality. So it's like, don't worry about your acting chops or whatever. Like, this story, this, just bring that to the role. So we ended up going to Chicago. Everybody thought it was going to come and go in 2.5 months. We didn't even think people were going to come see it, because almost a 3.5-hour show in the heat in Chicago. Nobody, I guess not a lot of people go to Chicago theater, because everybody in the summer wants to be out in Chicago. And then they ended up taking us, we ended up selling out, and then we went to Broadway, and that's how I got to Broadway. And so things have just kind of expanded since then, but it's led to, playing Wilma in the Cherokee Word for Water, and then in the Glorias, and then to me going back to school to get my Master's of Fine Arts in Screenwriting, because I wasn't seeing enough of our people in the stories. I mean, I was now mentoring, I had been mentored by Sheila Tausey and Sherry Foster and Tantu Cardinal, and these amazing Native women that had gone before me in Weston, not just women, men as well, Wes Studi and Graham Greene. And I had been mentored, Steve Rivas, and we came up together, Zon McLaren and I came up together. So I'd been mentored by these amazing people. So now it was my turn. I was mentoring actors coming up behind me, and there was no freaking work. Like there were no television role. I mean, it was like you go back and you look at the Screen Actors Guild, you look at all the statistics, and there was just nothing there from about 2006-ish, 5-ish, all the way until like 2014. And at the time I was like, I got to do something. And I'm a screenwriter. And I was just like, shoot, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to put acting on the side for a second. I'm just going to start pumping out scripts. And so that's then that brought me to UC Riverside, which is where I got my MFA. And then they hired me when I graduated to teach acting there. So now I've like this like amazing new kind of chapter in my life of empowering and equipping young storytellers, which if you know anything about UC Riverside, we are one of the most special, diverse, powerful group of students and faculty and administration that's just so progressive and so forward and so holistic in their approach to education and how we can serve the world. And so it's just a really great fit for me. And so that's kind of brought me to where we are now. So, okay.
Wow.
That was real fast, but now we can talk and get to our chat room and all that kind of stuff.
That was awesome. I did a little bit of time in Hollywood myself, so awesome. I hear some of the things that you're saying because my family was involved in Hollywood, and so I actually went to the Playhouse West with the Sanford Meisner School. Got to meet Sandy. Worked with Bob Carnegie and with Jeff Goldblum, and I mean all of the Uma Thurman went through there. I mean all of that whole genre of the 90s actresses and actors went through there.
That real naturalistic.
And it was a great school. Unfortunately, I was ill-equipped for Hollywood. I had a little too much fun out there, so that's why I ended up having to leave Hollywood. But
they can be dangerous, that's for sure.
It was dangerous for me.
Yeah, no, they can.
I was in some Mormon videos.
Everything counts.
Mormon videos.
I just remember that
this is the heathen here.
I just remember that the exactly. It's like, well, the story is, so this is when I lived in Salt Lake City, right? And I was going on a lot of auditions out to the Osmond Studios because they were doing commercials and stuff like that. But there was also a lot of work in the religion in Mormon teaching videos that would go all around the world, right? So it was fairly easy to get a gig and they paid well. But make a long story short, I had a black eye because my friend's boyfriend punched me after I was telling him to leave. A little violence there. So I went to the Mormon to the place where they were going to shoot, and they had to do my makeup all up. But then the guy who was filming was like, "Oh, your eyes look so sparkly. Let's get more of that. Let's talk about your grandmother. Who do you love the most? Talk about your." It was just I just couldn't believe the dichotomy of here I was with a black eye because of domestic violence. I'm talking about I don't know. I'm there for a Mormon teaching video. It just seemed like wackadoodle in my world that was happening. But that's Hollywood, right? Or that's like film, like nobody.
Craig, they call it Craig.
That to me is like the perfect intersection of like being native and in Hollywood. It's just like how we can talk about like the crappiest things that have happened, the hardest things that have happened to us. Just like, but then I had to go do it, so let's put some makeup on it.
Nice, put some makeup on it. Let's do this thing. Let's teach people how to be a Mormon. Woohoo! Yeah, it was great.
So now that was your story about your acting career and your life story, how you came up. Now your activism and the community work that you do. How did that step into your life as far as, through your acting career and whatnot?
Well, thank you for bringing that up, because that was really, again, going back to what I felt like when
you were 6,
my ancestor told me, right?
Yeah.
We sent you there for a reason. When I was one of my very first jobs was on As the World Turns, soap opera, and evidently a lot of the Indian grandmas, like, that was their jam. And so I got a call. Well, CBS got a call from Lower Brule, South Dakota, saying, "Hey, we want one of your actors to come, actresses to come out to South Dakota and talk to our kids." And so the message they called CBS, like CBS television, and somehow the message got all the way down to me on As the World Turns. I'm like, oh my God, this is great. I would love to come. And so that was my very first speaking engagement, was out there on the Lower Brule Reservation. And then it was like, Crow Creek found out, and then Pine Ridge found out. And it's just like, at that point, how we all just kind of connect as Native people. And so, so getting out on the reservations, and at the time I was just telling my story, but I would keep coming back. And so it's like, then we'll come back in 6 months. Like, what else can you talk about? I'm like, I don't know. What do you want me to talk about? They're like, well, we have problems with teen pregnancy. I'm like, okay. And then I would do my research on teen pregnancy and figure out how I could speak to that, something that was personal. And then I would do these, it was basically like stand-up / performance / educational, these, and what are the things they call, like, when they call us in from school, and we have to go into like the gym, and like an assembly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these like hour-long assemblies, and I have like kindergartners through like, seniors, and I'm like, okay, I got to entertain them, edutain them for an hour. And so, I did anger management, I did tobacco prevention, I did like whatever it was. And so I studied history at UCLA. And so it helped me kind of, just that mind helped me kind of understand how to take all this information and synthesize it, and then present it to a way to the student where they could understand and then make a knowledgeable choice on whether they were going to smoke or not smoke, or whether, all these different things. And then always, because I'm a goofy, I try to make it funny. So that's how I got involved into the community. And then it was just like, it was, just my source of joy. And I literally one time turned down a role because I was working a lot and I hadn't been back to the reservation in a while. And I got a role. It was a role. It was like a, couple of days on a show. But I had already planned to go to Pine Ridge, and it had been planned for a while. And I'm like, no, I can't, because it was like, no, I need to get to Pine Ridge. I need to spend time with the peeps and get connected. And this was like, back in my 20s. And like you said, I was incredibly fortunate, Roy, not to have a propensity for drugs or alcohol. And so I think just being sober, I had my own kind of, like, I was drunk on my own kind of stuff, but, like, and
that's good. That's good.
It's just, I'm still
working
on my sobriety as far as ego and like, perfectionism and things like that. But as far as that goes, I still needed to get back with the people and be in our communities. And that's from San Carlos to East Carolina to the Northeast. I just went everywhere and started exactly what we were talking about, Shannon, about the beauty of the vastness and the uniqueness of all of our people. Alaska, spending a lot of time with our Alaska Native brothers and sisters up there. So that's just something that's always been a big part of me. And it's just evolved over time.
Wow.
It's awesome because, I was adopted half out of my family like you were, and you were adopted out, but then you were danced back in. We call it being danced back, because our people have been coming back, for the last 50 years, 60 years, have been coming back into the culture and back into the people and back into service. Yes. And you were danced back. And at such a young age too, at 6 years old, you were actually brought back into the culture, and that's a cool story.
That's so beautiful, that connection too, because right now Cherokee Holidays is going on. So shout out to everybody that's at Cherokee Holidays. All my family's there right now. But when I reconnected with my biological family when I was 19, My dream had always been to fancy shawl dance. And so I did not want to come. I didn't want to go into the circle because I was out here in the California powwow group. So like these are my people, like the California powwow, circle. And it was
the Hales and the
yes, the Hale. So those were my people, and they were like, "Oh, come dance." And I did. I felt so loved and connected, with our people here in Southern California and the powwow circuit. But it was just something about, I was like, no, I want to come in with my family. So when I reconnected with my biological family, they had a coming out for me at Cherokee holidays. So, and I got to finally fancy shawl dance for the first time.
Oh, nice.
And so, but I was.
So you did your giveaway and everything out there?
I did my giveaway and everything out there. It was so beautiful. And I invited my adopted parents there. So it's the only time I've seen like my adopted mom and dad and my biological mom and dad got married.
I remember you dancing in the 90s at the powwows out here in California.
Yes.
You were out there in the circuit. I remember.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Yeah. I still love it.
California powwows are good. We have good powwows out here.
Yeah, we have great powwows. We always have. And so many, Oklahomans are out here. And
a lot of them.
So which is interesting because my actual biological family was out here and very involved with the powwow circuit out here. And then when my grandfather was Pete George, God rest his soul, and they moved back to Tahlequah with some Cherokee families, which is how I came to be, because they were up in Washington State, Montana. My grandmother's from the Salish-Kootenai res, and then came down here and then moved back with some Cherokee families back to Tahlequah. So when I went to the set of the Cherokee Word for Water, when I went to visit Charlie Soap for the first time at Wilma and Charlie's house, I don't know how it came up, but I told them, I said, I was telling them who my Tahlequah people were. And I said, Pete George was my grandfather. And I just thought I was going to throw it out there. Tahlequah it's much bigger than Idabel, and he just almost started weeping. He's like, Pete George is the one that like brought me into this circle, that really helped me understand what powwow was all about. And I'm just like, what? So it's just this really powerful, beautiful connection. And so just all made that all the more, even in retrospect, all the more powerful that my grandfather was one of the ones that really helped shape Cherokee holidays, and the gourd dancing, and just, all of the beauty of the powwow aspect of Cherokee holidays, that my Colville grandpa was part of that. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Wow. Isn't it amazing when you open yourself up, the things that come into your life that you think are just by wonderful circumstance or what have you. But listening to your story, Kimberly, it's just really connecting with me, because sometimes we look at events that happen in our life and we forget how to be grateful, and we forget, we get so caught up in politics or whatever is going on in the world, that we lose kind of our way and our connection to our culture, our connection to our story and all the things that made us possible. My grandmother used to tell me that she went through all of the pain and the struggles that she went through so that I could be here and take a different path, right? Mm-hmm. So it's so important for us to be goofy and grateful, and to remember all of those relationships that we have that has made our journey possible.
Well, look at you, girl. Look at you. You and I both, Kimberly, Shannon and I known each other for a very long time, and we were both very young members of the Native American Church at the time, in Garden Grove with Little Crow, Carl Bryant, and he was kind of like bringing both of us up, because we were both two kind of lost kids at that time, and and my opening to the community was, I went into the powwow arena. And even Chief Bob Rivera brought me into the arena as a gourd dancer. And, it was just like my entry into Indian country out here in California, and the powwow circuit and everything was like just flourishing. And Shannon was like, oh gosh, I'm going to school all the time. And they were pushing Shannon on this other path. Like she was going to school and she was the smart one, of course. And she was doing all of this legal thing. And now look at her today. She's been to DC. She worked for the president. She's this big time lawyer in Washington working for the Indian people, you know.
Talk about badass.
It's like how she is. She's a badass. She really is. I give her a lot of shit, but my sister's a badass. And we both had this very different path, but it was like how when she says we opened ourselves up and we were just kind of welcomed in and brought back in and danced back into the community. It was really
I love that.
Yeah, it was really cool.
It's everything. It's everything.
Yeah.
And then that same feeling that you had when you were a 6-year-old, you know, that when they sent me back home to Louisiana, where the Caddos where our Caddos are. There's two different Caddos. There's the Caddos in Oklahoma, and then there's a small group of us left in Louisiana where we were originally from before they moved everybody out to Oklahoma for the land allotment deal. And so just I forgot where I was going with that, but anyway, being back home and actually stepping my feet onto that dirt for the first time in Louisiana, I felt it just like you did, and it was talking to me. It was saying, now you have to get to work. You're back. This is who you are. This is who your family is. Now it's time to get to work. Right. And that's what it's been ever since then. This burning desire, always, you know, inside of me, to get back to the community or to do something for the community to help preserve. You know, so yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So Wilma, like, did you get to meet her when she was around?
No, it was so fascinating was because I was doing so much public speaking at the time. We were, you know, I would just be shadowing her everywhere she went. And Lisa Tiger was one of my dear friends back then. And Lisa would go out and stay with Wilma and Charlie. And you know, we'd talk on the phone. She'd be calling me from Wilma and Charlie's. And so I always felt like I was connected to Wilma. And when I did see her, I remember being at the American Indian College Fund Gala one year, and Wilma was the guest speaker. And the few times that I was physically around Wilma, obviously everybody would just flock to her after she spoke and need to talk to her. Mm-hmm. And I always felt like, you know, one of these days, having been one of those people that spoke kind of all over the place, I was like, one day we'll be at the same conference, like maybe out somewhere in Montana, we'll find a Billings and have to sit for a 3-hour ride to get back out to a reservation somewhere. And we'll get to really connect, just Wilma, myself, and whoever's picking us up or whatever. And I just really deeply felt it was like, don't, you know, let everybody else have their time, because your time's going to come and you guys are going to have a great intimate talk and you're already connected. So don't worry about it. And so when she got sick the last time, I was, and she, of course, she'd been sick so many other times, and we prayed. I mean, I felt like we prayed her through. And it's like, it's not going to get her down this time. And she just overcame so much, you know, throughout the years. Mm-hmm. And when she passed, I remember that feeling like, no. Like my gut is always so right about this. My gut said, you will have time with her one day. You will have time and sit down, and she'll be able to speak to you, and you'll be able to speak back to her. And I was so confused. And I just, you know, in my prayers, I was like, what? Like, did I miss it? You know, I just felt so badly. And so when the movie came around, and I'll never forget, it was so surreal. Driving up to Mankiller Flats, driving up to Charlie and Wilma's house, where, you know, I talked to Lisa so many times, and walking into their home and having Charlie welcome me. And then walking into Wilma's home and sitting at her office. Charlie wanted me to sit at her desk. I mean, I had just gotten off the plane and stuff and sat down, and I was like, oh, it was always going to be this. You know, this was the way. And so it was a very bittersweet, melancholic kind of connection. But in some ways, I have to say, I got to know her maybe even more deeply, because I got to know her spirit to spirit. And then from all the people that love her, and from Felicia and Gina and all of her family members and my family members that knew her really well. And so just, getting to hear her story. I was very fortunate. For a month, I got to go back to Tahlequah and stay and research and get ready to shoot. And so that's a really long winding way of saying no. I never got to meet her in person, but in spirit, yes. And then got to revisit her again for the Glorias.
Do you mind if I show the trailer for Word for Water?
Yes.
Let me see if I can get it out. And when did this come out? Was it 2014, 2013?
Is this for Cherokee Word for Water?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, 2013.
2013. All right. Let me see if I can share this. And we'll get this up, hopefully, and play. Let me know if you can't hear it.
It started with the return of one Cherokee woman, Wilma Mankiller.
You know anyone who can help me with the housing regulation?
Who's that guy? Charlie Soap.
Your plan is to ask the people to dig 18 miles of water line by themselves?
But we need someone who knows the community out there.
People out here in Bell, they're not much for meetings. How long do you plan to stick this out?
How long do you plan to stick this out?
Times when we care the most are the hardest times to get right.
Are you shutting down the project?
We've had plenty of failed projects in the past.
The greatest need here in Bell is water and housing. We have a plan that will bring a water line into Bell.
One way or another, I guarantee you that little project of theirs is going to fail.
Something's not right.
These people here
He always plays the bad guy.
Solving the problems of the people.
People in Bell are getting pressured for working on the water line.
Cows feel a big storm coming. They hid away from it. Buffalo, put his head down, face that stone.
I asked him if I have the authority to make personnel decisions on this project.
Mm-hmm.
You're fired.
Fire in the hole!
Maker, thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for giving us what we already have and for what you're putting in front of us right now.
You asking me out on a date?
Yes, Charlie, I'm asking you out on a date.
I was wondering when you'd get around to it.
Get that equipment the hell off my land!
Get over here!
It is a struggle, but we're going to make it through because you're with us.
No one from Oak Ridge has signed up to work.
You know, we sure could use your help over at Oak Ridge. Now, if we could just come together like we used to, Gadugi.
Ama, aate hain.
Wow.
Yes. True story. True story of Belle. Wilma did not want a movie about her, made about her. She wanted to be about the people.
Mm-hmm.
It's so wonderful looking back on that. So, I mean, obviously there's people that are very near and dear to my heart. They're in my family. Steve and Zahn, and I mean, my Hollywood family, I guess you could say, our actor family. It's probably a better way to say it. But, just all the folks that we got to meet back there. And it's just so incredible that, like Cindy Soap is in that film. You saw her in the scene with Jamie Loy. And Cindy worked on the water line.
Oh,
wow.
So there were a lot of people that actually came out to do the movie who worked on the water line. Wow. And so if you get to watch it during this really emotional, the ending, when they're actually building the water line, so many of those people actually worked on the water line back in the 80s, and I mean, this little part of, rural Oklahoma, which interestingly enough, my biological parents raised my little sister Heather there with no water. But, nobody thought that they could do it. Everybody thought, you're insane. These people cannot, how are they going to build this water line through all this tough granite and all this kind of stuff? Mm-hmm. And Wilma was like, my people can do anything. Cherokee people can do anything if they put their mind to it. And that's what they wanted. That's what she asked them. She said, what do you want? She went out there. And so it was the magic of Wilma. It was, she knew if she just gave people a platform to speak and listened to them. They knew what the problems were that they were facing and how best to solve those problems. And so she went and listened, and they said, more than anything, we need water, because if we have water, then we don't have to worry about the school dropout as much, or the unemployment. I mean, all these different things will come if we just have water. And so it was just, she was the first, it was the first project ever to take funds that were, I believe they were state or federal, they could have been federal as well, and then use volunteer labor with those funds, which then brings, then you got a lot more bang for your buck when you have volunteer labor.
Yeah. Well, and usually those types of infrastructure projects, you've got to put up some kind of, like you might get 80% from the federal government, but you have to have, you have to put up some as well. So that may be how she, if I don't know if I remember it quite in the movie, but that may be how she paid for that, is use Cherokee labor.
Yes, it's like we're because this is their water line.
Yeah, that's
incredible. Yeah, it's an extraordinary story, absolutely true story.
Wow. I know that I have been told all sorts of stories about Wilma Mankiller and people who met her. I've met some people who've been donating to the association since the 60s and 70s, who basically said, hey, I met Wilma Mankiller somewhere. Mm-hmm. And when I asked her what I could do in Indian country, she said, give money to the Association on American Indian Affairs. And they've been giving money ever since. So like we've Wilma still is giving gifts today in all ways all across Indian country.
She is the gift that keeps on giving. There's no question about it.
Yeah. And then you're getting to play. You played her again with Gloria Steinem. That's incredible.
It was, it was, I thought I had because again, thinking Hollywood way, like there's no way. It's like asking Gary Oldman to play Winston Churchill again, like that's not going to happen. As much as I wanted to play her and wanted to support the story. But they called me up and they're like, nope. But I have to tell you this story though, because in going back to Oklahoma and spending all that time and spending some time with Gloria, meeting her, she introduced the Cherokee word for water when the association presented it at Lincoln Center. Mm-hmm. Just connecting with her there and just listening to Gina and Felicia talk about the love between those two women. They really were chosen family, and Gloria, Gloria was there she was there the whole way through from the time that Wilma began serving on her board. I mean, they were just, when I went to do the audition for the Glorias, it was like, it was just the physicality of Wilma. It was just right there. And the Wilma has such a centeredness and a groundedness and humor and wisdom like happening at the same time. And it was just like it came flooding back into me. But then the scene I was auditioning for was one of the scenes was when she's passing away. And I had the privilege and the honor of being there. Like I knew what her bedroom looked like, and I knew what it must have been like for Gloria to be there by her side, and Charlie to be there by her side, and hearing from her daughters, like and from Charlie, and just the pain that she would go through. And my little sister, this is just another crazy thing. My little sister Jennifer, my brilliant little sister Jennifer, was Wilma's media person at The Nation. So Wilma would be like going through these really just extraordinary medical situations, and my little sister was tasked with, because she needed to make a statement to the nation, and so my little sister would make sure her makeup and everything and hair and the lighting was good. So from here down, like for all this was like business, but she would be in her hospital room, or she'd be getting treatment or something like that. And because she never wanted people to know she was sick. She never wanted people to know she was suffering. She's like, they don't need to know that. They just need to know what's going on and what we need to do about it. And so my little sister was privy to that. And so just knowing, you know, from again, all these firsthand accounts of everything that she went through. So when I did that audition, it was the audition. It's at the end of her life. And she's talking to Gloria. And I mean, just all of this very real emotion came flooding through me. You know, it was real tears. It wasn't acting tears. I wasn't performing. It was like such a, it was like a coda to a song, you know, where I really got to go back and be in Wilma's skin and just experience this love that she had for Gloria and wanting to, you know, just send Gloria off in like the most powerful way that she could until they saw each other again. And so I was just remember being so overwhelmed and being so grateful. I always try to do this with an audition. I've been doing this since I was in my 20s and would be gutted when I wouldn't get a part. And just like, you can't do this for the rest of your life because you're not going to get parts a lot. But this one in particular was like, I don't care if I get this role. I got to do this scene. You know, even if it was just for the producers to see me, like I got to experience this and experience the love between Wilma and Gloria. And it is beautiful. It's a beautiful, fearsome thing. So then when I was cast, which was just like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I cannot believe I get to do this again. And then I found it was Julianne Moore.
Yeah.
Yes. And not only do I love her as an actor, but I got to meet her at First Americans in the Arts, like back in the 90s. And she's one of those people that this is like, there's Julianne Moore, the actor, but it was just a human being. Like when there's some people that you meet and you feel like, I know you, like, I know you, I love you, I want to be your friend. But it was like a mutual like, and so we had this really interesting exchange at First Americans. And she was on the same soap opera I was on, As the World Turns. She was one of the main characters.
Oh,
wow. So we were like, you know, chit-chatting about that. And I was like, oh, I can't wait. I cannot believe I get to do this with Julie. You know, I was like, oh my gosh. And so when I got to the set, I was like, I don't know if you remember me. And so I told her, she's like, oh my gosh, yes. Oh my God. You know, so it was just, we got to kind of pick up where we left off. And I do just, you'll see it. I mean, for those that get to see it, The Glorias is coming out on September the 30th on Amazon. But the magic, you get to see the magical beauty of that love story between Gloria and Wilma. It's really, really powerful.
all right. I think I have that one ready to go. You want to watch the trailer? I'm going to watch the trailer.
Yeah, play that.
Okay, let me get us going here. Full screen. Can we hear it?
Yep.
Gloria Steinem.
Gloria?
Gloria.
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 I am. I want to write about the women's movement.
What movement?
Very few jobs actually require a penis or vagina.
Well, all the magazine people said don't do a lesbian story in the first issue, so I feel like we need to do a lesbian story.
Gloria Steinem should rot in hell.
You can't associate yourself with those crazy women.
I am one of those crazy women.
Can we change the world? Yes, we can. She says women.
How'd you get the name Mankiller?
I earned it.
You earned it.
We gotta stop sucking and begin to bite.
This is the year of women's liberation.
If you avoid conflict, my darling, conflict will seek you out.
The truth will set you free. But first, it will piss you off.
We'll rise up and we'll do it 1,000 times again.
Wow.
That's going to be a good one.
Oh yeah, I can't wait.
Gloria really wanted. I mean, she was hoping. The intention with the film was, and Julie Taymor as well, and everybody on board is just to really encourage people to get out and vote and empower people that their voice does matter and our communities do matter, and standing for things together does matter. You know, no matter what we're facing, what injustice or what obstacles, is that together anything is possible if we stick together. We move in love. It's like this beautiful balance between intelligence and wisdom and love, and community.
Oh, I feel so inspired right now. I'm so grateful, Kimberly. I'm so grateful for you right now. Thank you, because this is what we need to be feeding ourselves with, is this kind of inspiration. It's such a difficult time in our world right now. We've got a couple of questions about COVID and
that's good.
Question.
Yeah, I want to recognize Glenn in the chat room. He's like throwing all kinds of questions out there.
Hi, Glenn.
He did say you can leave the res, but the res doesn't leave you. So
thank God.
And indeed,
he's gone from everything from COVID to
the UCR powwow.
And UCR powwow. We should be. Well, I think we're all social distance powwows right now. So Sherman Indian powwows been canceled. UCR. Obviously, that one's been canceled too. Yeah. So none of
Long Beach was canceled.
Long Beach was canceled.
That's a great powwow. I love Long Beach powwow.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
I came out as a straight dancer at the Long Beach powwow.
Aw. Did you know the Kashaways, Roy?
What's that?
Did you know the Kashaways?
Yeah. Les Hand and Larry Smith brought me into the arena as a straight dancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so those, back in the 90s, there was things were popping back then.
We were popping.
It was popping back then. Now it's still popping. It's still popping. Right now with the COVID, it's not. But
your knees are popping.
You got that right.
Knees back, hip.
Not as loose as we used to be, but still going on.
Yeah, so I would love to I would love to just talk to everyone out there and talk to you all and just kind of connect on exactly that point, because we were just talking about the story is medicine, and right now our world is sick, our planet is sick, just as our people are fighting this illness. It's all over the world for the first time in our lives experiencing something like that. So I would love to hear what people are doing to
I wanted to address, the movie, the Glorias, for instance. It's a matriarchal movie. Matriarchal, is that how you say it? But I mean, as far, me as a native man and understanding the culture, that doesn't, I look at that as one of our ways out of all of this mess, is women taking over, and it doesn't affect my manhood at all. I see a lot of this talk out there, especially online, about the castration of men and the demasculation of men and all of this stuff. But in my culture, what I was taught, it was how important the women are. Most of the ceremonies, most of the things are for men, so that we can understand and remember what it is that you women already know.
Intuitively,
because you guys intuitively know how to nurture and how to bring peace, and you guys look at things a little differently than we do, and I've always understood that. So when I see mainstream, putting out some more feminist type movies or things like that, it inspires me, because I'm like, okay, well, now we're going the right direction. And we've got a woman now that's probably going to be sitting in the second highest position in the country, for the first time. And so all these things are inspiring to me when I see the matriarchs starting to take a stronger foothold in the narrative that's going on out there. Like when you do see them talking about even the BLM movement, there's a lot of women getting out in front of this and speaking,
Right.
And there's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of power. It's almost because once women do come out and do stand in front and start to address and start to assert their authority, men really back down. I see it anyway. I mean, as men like, hey, wait a second, the women are speaking now. And I'm starting to see it more and more, especially in this day and age. And it inspires me. So I'm glad to see that movie actually coming out.
Yeah, and it just to inspire those women leaders, present and future. You know, we look at the COVID virus. Glenn, you said Glenn had a question about the COVID virus, but you look at, and this isn't about better or worse. This is just about it's all hands on deck moment.
Yes.
You know, for ourselves as human beings, which of course we all know as Native people. That's what our language, our names always go back to being human beings. The human beings that live by the mountains, or the human beings that live by the lake, or but it's always about being human beings. And you look at the COVID response. I don't know if the numbers are still correct, but as of a month and a half ago, all of the countries that were doing the best job at taking the threat down of this virus were all female-led countries, with Jacinda over in. I mean, can't Jacinda just clone herself and we all get a Jacinda? But, you know, she's over in New Zealand, and I was actually in New Zealand shooting when everything kind of went down. And it was interesting because we were all, you know, chatting about it because it was happening. It was kind of building. And they were talking, I was working with a lot of Maori folks in New Zealand, and they were saying that Jacinda, they have schools there now where you can learn the Maori language. And Jacinda is fluent in Maori.
Wow.
I don't speak my indigenous language fluently, but the president of New Zealand can speak the Maori language fluently. And there's just something so profound about that. And she's
really is
a single mom, and she just, you know, she just makes it happen. And so I do think that, you know, I mean, hopefully that can, and we're going to be in such a, I worry so much. I mean, how can we not? But I don't want to worry. I want to believe and pray and do what I can. But, you know, come early November, there's going to be such a, there's that potential, you know, for a break. And, you know, for all of us to be sending out prayers and love and reaching out to the other side. You were saying, Roy, earlier that you talk to folks that are, you know, maybe on the right side, telling them about Mount Rushmore, you know, just civil discourse, engaging with them from a place of love and a place of connection. And so we're going to all have to, you know, really on both sides. I mean, I do have obviously family being from Oklahoma, but, you know, friends too, who are very, you know, much, you know, right wing, that's, you know, and it's like trying to reach out to them ahead of time saying, hey, what can we do?
Yeah. And it's because their fears are being played into. They feel like they're being negated or aided in some way. And now what we need to, I think we all need to relate to that, because we've been aided, you know, and they're on the brink of being aided is what they're feeling, you know. But Native cultures have been aided for centuries now. And that's why I think where the conversation has to come in, because these people are acting the way they're acting right now because they're afraid.
Right.
And yeah, there is some there's some anger, and there's some prejudices and those types of things that exist in there. But I think that's a small portion of it. I think that their fears, the fear that they have has been so played into that they're buying into the fear. And that's where a lot of this is coming from, because I've never seen this country so divided.
I know.
As far as people feeling that fear, you know, on both sides now.
It's on both sides. And you know, we were talking earlier, I've been really fortunate to be able to do a lot of traveling. And every time I'm out in the airport I love getting on a plane, because like, who am I going to meet on the plane this time? And it's just always so extraordinary to meet people from every different kind of political bent. And I would say 80% of the stuff we can agree on. Yes. You know, regardless of they're far left or far right. And I always kind of just hover somewhere around the center, because I'm always trying to, that's just kind of who I am by nature, is trying to find the equilibrium and find, you know, so it's just, I was like, wait, I'm like, you people on television on both sides, it's like all this rhetoric flying, you're making us a lot more different than we actually are, because I'm meeting those people. You know, and nobody's this, you know, nobody that I'm meeting personally, you know, is this like rigid and, you know, not willing to open and share their hearts and share their stories, as you said.
Yeah,
and I think women can help foster that conversation.
Yeah, it's a term that I've used for a long time that I was taught. It's called recreating the myth, you know, because we all have these myths and we need to recreate that, and through stories, and everybody needs to be telling their stories so that we can all understand one another and come to, like you said, some kind of an agreement versus, being out there. Because like same with me. Every time I've sat down and really had a conversation with somebody as far right as they can be, or as far, leaning that way as they can be, we agree on so many different things, that we're really not that far away from each other. Mm-hmm. And I've never run into anybody where it's just like, no, we're both in two different worlds. We both want good things for our families. We both want good things for our countries. We both want good things for our neighbors, And
but to have that conversation, you've got to let go of something. You've got to let go of like your pride or your ego.
Oh yeah.
You've got to be able to find that connection with people. And I have a difficult time because I see what the current administration is and is not doing. And so I see the harm. And so it's I want to so badly tell people and educate people and say, look, this is what's actually happening that harms Indian country, and please don't vote Trump. But that, because no one's willing to let go of their pride or their beliefs, either me or other people, it's really hard to have that conversation. And so today I connected to something that I'd forgotten about recently, which is all my relations. The idea that we're all related, and that's exactly what you both are talking about right now, is how we all are related, and we've got to find a way to come back to that. Before we have any of these other conversations about politics and anybody else, we have to remember that we're all part of the same family.
Yep, they're all our relatives.
But you got to let go of your pride. You got to let go of that stuff to remember that.
Yeah. I think that's we were talking about earlier, just the importance of story and in watching stories that inspire us. I think that's really important way to handle the situation that we're in right now, because it's so easy for me to get, locked in on what's going on in the news. And be a news junkie, and then because it's just so much rhetoric. And like I chose purposefully last night to watch something that was inspiring, because it does feed you and it builds your empathy. And our empathy is getting stretched to the max. We're getting forced into these corners, and this dualistic thinking of it's got to be bad or it's good. It's black or it's white. It's native or it's not.
Where's the duality, right? Where's the duality?
Right. And it's like, it's the antithesis of we're all related, because all my relations means I'm part of this glass, the sand that makes up this glass, and, the air that we all breathe, and the water that we're all drinking from and that we live from, that we're all related. The fires, like I can see, it looks like there's a fire. Do you see that, Roy, too?
There's another fire somewhere here. I just got a text. I wasn't looking at it, but I just got a text.
So it's all of that, and trying to build that, guard the empathy that we have and build it even more so. And I've been trying to do that too. I used to work at Trump Tower, and when I was in New York working on As the World Turns, and I saw the Donald. Remember those days when he was the Donald?
Yes.
He referred to himself as the Donald.
The Donald.
Mm-hmm. And now he refers to himself as Trump. That person's not for Trump. But it's having been a survivor of sexual abuse, that man's a predator. And all the women that worked with me knew. And as soon as the Donald came down, and we were on the floor where the elevator comes down and opens up kind of on the top floor of the Trump Tower shops. And then he goes down the escalators. And we were right there. Our store was right there when it was a Native American jewelry store, actually. And so, all my female coworkers knew. It's like, when it opened and the Donald was there, it was just like, you figured out some way to hide, because if he came in, it was just all like the touchy feeling, like I own you, it's like, don't, sucker. But and like anybody that's from New York that knows him and was running in those circles, like just anybody that you hear, it's like they all knew him.
Well, they've already all wrote books about him. I mean,
exactly.
And they're all saying the same things.
I know. I mean, there's no convincing this. I'm talking about my own family members that just love Donald Trump. It's just like there's no explaining to them. I'm like,
I don't get it.
I hear you. I love this. I wanted Ross Perot to be president so bad because I was like, yes, somebody from Texarkana. I'm like, I want somebody like that's where I grew up.
And it was different. Ross Perot was different.
Ross Perot was different, and he was smart, and he's like Bill Clinton. We need to make microchips, not potato chips.
He was great.
I loved how he was stirring it up, and he freaking would get things done. I mean, do you remember like what Ross Perot sent? Like the military couldn't get these hostages out, and Ross.
I'm gonna get this done. I'm gonna get this done right now.
Ross Perot sent he got folks and went in and got hostages out. It was his.
Yeah, it was like whoa.
Like the man was just
look what private sector can do.
Exactly. So I'm all down for that. But the thing is, I mean, dear beloved brothers and sisters who are Trump supporters, we know as Native people, especially, casinos are like, and we've all gambled, right? So casinos aren't new to us. We're gambling people. So, but the thing is, a casino is geared to take your money. I mean, it's like you can't not succeed at a casino. The machines are literally rigged. Right. The whole system is rigged.
And if you fail at a casino, something wrong with you.
The man bankrupted a casino. Shouldn't that be
half of your ass?
You can't even keep a casino open. And you're talking good business person? Not to mention just all the folks. Like I know because now that I'm an educator too, it's like people really put their hard-earned money into these universities and to get to go to Trump University because they believed in what they were going to learn. And then to not get anything, to just get taken for tens of thousands of dollars. Like that just breaks my heart. And that's just one of the many stories. So I am all for a great businessman, giving a shot to a great businessman and fixing the financial issues that face. That's why it's very difficult for me to lean on one side or another, because I believe in fiscal conservancy. I believe that we should know where, it's like, and then see at the same time, I'm like, I love me some Denmark. I love me some Danish socialism because I have friends in Denmark and they're like, you can trace yes, I'm paying a lot of taxes and I can trace every penny of my taxes.
Wow.
And if I don't like my job, I call them up and I'm like, I don't like my job. And they're like, okay, let's retrain you for something else. I'm having a hard time at work. I'm just mentally not, okay, let's send you to a spa for 2 weeks, all paid for, and let's get your head together and get back in the game and see how you feel. I mean, it's just like, it's such humanity. It's nurturing humanity and helping people realize their full potential, and I'm not saying, I mean, that's a whole different argument. That's a philosophical argument, whether our country should be that, or it really should be a strongly capitalist country. And it's like survival of the fittest. But I didn't really want to get on the, but I mean,
the bottom line is, if it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, and everybody's writing about it being a duck, it's probably a duck.
That's right. But I'm there were some folks I did see at the Republican. I mean, my husband and I powered through that RNC. And if there are Republicans out there, maybe you powered through the DNC, and like we're both thinking the same thing. Like, how could you believe that? Yeah. So that's the interesting thing, right? But we powered through, and what was exciting was there were some young Republicans, especially people of color, that I was like, yes, let's get them in there, because I feel like we could have a conversation. I miss John McCain so badly.
Yeah, I know that was
like that voice of on the Republican side that could bring so much, just harmony and stand for what they believe in, but still be able to reach out to the other side.
Yeah. Oh,
one thing you said was about you were talking about inspirational stories. And I mean, that's what our songs and our dances and our drums are about, is those are all inspirational stories.
That's right.
That, on a regular basis, we feed to ourselves as Native people. And I always feel so refreshed when I go and listen to the Southern drum. Nothing against the Northern guys, nothing against you guys, but when I get to go sit there and listen to that Southern drum and hear those songs, it just it just resonates. And I hear the stories and I hear the songs and the dances. It's just those inspiring stories, and we've always had those. And we need more of that.
Absolutely.
We definitely need more of that.
That's what's so, like you were talking about native TikTok. That's what I love about living in this time. As difficult as it is going through the pandemic right now and all the other unrest, the social injustice and the climate change and all the other stuff but I love that we can connect through this medium of technology, because think about all those years when we didn't have a voice. We couldn't get on and have this conversation with all of our brothers and sisters in the chat room. That wasn't possible. And to feel invisible and to feel like no matter how loud you scream, nobody was going to listen. And that's not true now. Or to have, you all know this because you're doing this right now. You go out to our communities, whether they're urban communities or whether they're reservation communities, and there's so much talent and wit and intelligence and wisdom. And it's like every time I go out, especially at the street, I'm like, people got to hear this. People got to hear this. People got to see you and encourage. And so now it's like, yes, you can have your own voice. You can start your own channel. It's like, just get your voice out there, get it heard. Let's hear what you're interested in. Let's hear your wisdom. Let's hear your wit.
Yep. And that's what Red Hoop Talk was for. It was so that we can give a platform to everybody to come on and speak and tell us who they are and what they're doing in Indian country.
Right.
Yeah. And so we can hear other people's stories. We can connect and remember that we're related, right?
Yes. And we're in it together.
So I'm going to change the conversation because I want to hear about, now I'm hoping I'm not forgetting, the Style Horse Collective. So the Style Horse Collective has been around for a while, hasn't it?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about it? Because there's some incredible videos on YouTube from the Style Horse Collective.
That'll be super fun. Yeah. So, the seed of it started back in the 90s when I connected with Lavina Louie, who's a fellow Colville tribal member. She's also Nez Perce, and she's Coeur d'Alene as well. And so she and I met back in Nespelem, where my family is from. And she was, Lavina is just a force of nature in her own right. She was Miss Indian World. She's just she was a co-president of Unity, and she's just at the forefront of the Native Wellness movement. And she works for the Native Wellness Institute now. And she and I had been working together for years. We started a thing. Well, she did it, but we came up with the idea. I think we were sitting on a couch out by the road. I have a picture of us sitting on this old couch that had been deposited on the res, and we're sitting on this couch having a conversation. But I feel like that's where it came up. It's like, let's do rock in the res. Let's do something where we bring kids together and we bring musicians and actors and all, and so she started rocking the res. She had her precious sister Dolly was killed in a car accident. And so that first Rock in the Res, and really all Rock in the Reses, are about just a memorial for Dolly and all those that we've lost, whether it be to car accidents or alcohol or drug abuse or domestic violence or whatever. And it was just like, oh, we've got to stand up to this dark cloud over our communities. And so she started, and let's start with our kids. And so she started Rockin' the Res. My husband brought his reggae band up for the very first one and played. And then that turned into, it kept going. And then she brought it to the Coeur d'Alene Res. And I'm like, well, let me take my camcorder up, and we'll just make our own movies. And so we started making the students would come up with, the participants would come up with their story ideas, and then we would shoot them. And then that turned in, my husband was doing music. So he was helping the students create their own music. He would take a mobile recording setup and help all the kids into music to create their own music. And then that turned into a film and music academy. And so we started working with Randy Redroad and Yvonne Russo and brought in just a really extraordinary team in, Heather Ray, and we're working up on the Bishop Paiute Reservation, and then all the tribes around in the traditional allies here in California. And so that became the Akatubi Music and Film Academy. And then kind of after that, tribal politics kind of reared its head and pulled the funding from that. And then it shifted into Johnny and Randy and Levine and I, we would do Rock on the Res and whatever. And I think we were up at a Rock on the Res one year. And we decided to shoot. Levine is an incredible producer, and she had this vision of taking on generational trauma and helping people understand, not, people from first and foremost from within our communities, about what generational trauma is and how it affects us. But also folks on the outside too, so they can understand, like, just going, oh, well, all Indians are drunk, or all Indians are this, or they can't get jobs or whatever. It's like, but understand the sucker punch of colonization. Understand what the pain of that's like, and that we carry it in our DNA. Literally, scientists have proven that. And so she had this idea to do We Shall Remain. And so Johnny created the music, and we brought in a beautiful singer from there on the Coeur d'Alene Reservation, and Thunderbirds raised her, this beautiful Lummi group. And so we shot this video. And then as we were shooting it, we were like, we don't want it to be Randy and Kimberly and Johnny and Levina. Like we were at that age, like, I don't want my name on it. So Levina's little daughter, I think it was North Stars, had a little corgi puppy. They'd just gotten him, and she named him Style Horse. And see, that's what I mean about like Indian cleverness, is like, she's like 6 years old. Like, his name was Style Horse. And we were like, we should be the Style Horse Collective. And so, so we became the Style Horse Collective, and We Shall Remain was our first video. And I think it's, it took off, and we started our own YouTube channel. And then from there on, we just kept moving out, kind of doing what we'd always done, but really being just being somebody for tribal communities or tribal people or nonprofits that worked with tribal folks, like an indigenous storytelling group that would help. We would listen to your story, and then we would help shoot it and capture it in the best way that we could. So we bring all of our creativity to it, marry it with their vision, exactly what we just did with Levina, and then bring that to life. So that became Style Horse Collective, and we've just put out some really cool stuff ever since we started. Powwow Sweat is our fitness video series. Yeah. Some great PSAs for the Hest life, which means the good life, the traditional life, that eating right and exercising and living this really great healthy life is traditional, and just reminding people of that. So that's kind of what the Style Horse Collective is about.
So yeah, I've got that one, eating healthy won't kill you.
Right. And so it's like, that's us too, bringing our, our humor to it. And we got to do work with Stacey Thunder on her show. And so it's just, we've just done a lot of really fun, cool things.
Well, I've got some up on YouTube. I don't know if there's one in particular that you'd like me to share.
Yeah, let's
just do one of the Powwow Sweat. There's like
we'll do a little bit of the Powwow Sweat, and then I would love to show I Love FB, because I just want to tell you about the people that are on I Love FB.
Right. So let me get the Powwow Sweat going on.
There's one dude. He's a big dude. He ain't got no shirt on or nothing. He's like bouncing around.
All right. That sounds like my kind of thing. My kind of Sunday night.
Like they're having fun.
So everyone in the chat room, you should be able to Google Powwow Sweat.
Good workout.
Yeah,
I've done it. It's not easy.
In this segment, we will be learning moves from the women's jingle dress dance. We will be breaking down those moves step by step. Let's get it done. Drop the Pringles and let's jingle. 1, 2, 3, 4. Step, turn, step, turn, step, turn.
So anybody that powers probably knows the Babe. She's our
Up, slide.
Tadeja, but everybody calls it the Babe.
Box.
And you get your contest work in too.
You get your contest work in. The stories that come from this, it just lights you up because you hope that people just enjoy it. But we've heard stories, kind of like my story, where I wanted to try dance, but nobody was there to teach me. And so we had a lot of native people out there going, especially kids going, oh wow, no. People now, they show their parent like, hey, I can do this, and they put everything regalia together. So it's been amazing.
Turn.
That's awesome. Woo. I don't see any big guys here in this one. Roy.
That is we had Bear Creek come in, who were like the Rolling Stones of the Northern Drums, they're just like so Bear Creek came in with us in Spokane into our studio where we shot.
Yeah, it was the Bear Creek one where the guy was.
Yeah, and Bear Creek actually tried to do power as well. And it was so great because Babe was up leading them, and so that's that was like our little teaser.
There's one of the guests. There's a bunch of the guest life ones down there. That's pretty cool. And the Feel for the Spirit one looks good. You see that down there? The guest life.
I don't. Yeah. So which is the one that
it's called I Love FB.
I Love FB. Yes. Yeah, let me play that one. Because you wanted to talk about that one. Let me get it up here.
But again, goes back to folks. That one, and there's a couple of them that I would love to show.
All right, let's see what we got going on here. Make it big. Play. Here we go.
This is your brain on fry bread.
FB has always been there for me. A way for me to connect with my family, my friends, my coworkers, and my community.
At first, I wasn't crazy about it, but I learned to love it.
My grandmother has a big problem with FB.
If I want to get off FB, I can do it.
No, you can't.
No, I can't. That problem is starting to rub off onto my kids.
And it's affected my family too, because even my kids, they're on it. I want to tell them no, but they're usually sitting right next to me.
All the time. I don't really see a problem with it.
I work with a lot of people hooked on FB. And let me tell you something, it's not pretty. The statistics say it all. FB is killing us.
I've read all the statistics saying that it's not good for you. That's a lot of.
My doctor says stay away, no more. So I went to a different clinic and got a new doctor.
There's a lot of denial.
I don't really think I have a problem.
A lot of blaming somebody or something else. But at the end of the day, if you have a problem with FB, it's your problem.
I love FB.
I love FB.
I love FB.
Okay, I'm still on it. I really don't think I can live without it.
You can take my FB when you pry it from my dead, cold fingers.
So that was like our funny way. We have a whole fry bread.
Put your brain on fry bread.
And that was like our take on social media. Like if you're hooked on FC, if you're hooked on Facebook, and just turning that around.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to, one of the reasons I wanted to watch that was because all of those people, this is Randy Red Road, myself, I think Johnny my husband was running sound, Lavina. We're just like literally pulling people out. We were staying at the Coeur d'Alene Casino Hotel. We were pulling people out, like, hey, can you come? Like the person that works in the casino office, the person that works in the tribal office. We're like, whoever we find, like, hey, can you come do this? And that's the way it's always been. And they just show up and they're genius. Like the comedic timing is perfect. The kids were perfect. I mean, everybody, it's just like light them, mic them, and let them go. Like they're just incredible. And so the humor and we're like, we kind of said this is what we want it to be, one of those really serious testimonials. And we want people to think that you're talking about Facebook. and social media and how addictive it is, but really it's going to twist around and be about fry bread. And so, we did that in like just, I don't know, like a couple of hours, and it's just, God, they're just genius. the power of Native folks, man. Amazing storytellers.
So you got to get on the TikTok. So as soon as you get on TikTok and you find like one Native person and you follow them, then they start putting it more on your For You page.
Oh,
so
fun.
Now like the big thing out there is like, they'll come running up to you and they're like, I love it when I open up my For You page and it's full of natives. Yeah.
Definitely.
So, yeah.
But you can also watch some good fishing videos, man, and watching people catch these really enormous fish.
That's it.
And noodling.
Interests you.
And noodling, like getting the catfish down with your hands, which that's what we do in Oklahoma, right? That's our thing.
Yeah,
I got to cook like all the barbecue ones show up on mine because like when you follow the barbecue, when like if I like this recipe, right? Like grab the recipe and then before you know it, like I'm getting like another one, and so I'm like, oh, I'm gonna follow this guy. Oh, he's got a great recipe. Oh, this one's got a good one too. So now I got all these barbecue ones. So it's like powwow pow native barbecue powwow pow native.
That's a good. Hey Shannon, play I learned it by watching you, because anybody in our generation will love this one.
Okay, let me find it. Oh, this one. Oh yeah. Okay. All right, let me make it big and play.
Is this yours?
No, it's not.
Your mother said she found it in your closet.
I don't know. One of the guys must have.
Must have what?
But Dad is not.
Where did you get it?
Dad is.
Answer me! Who taught you how to use this stuff?
You all right? I learned it from watching you.
Parents who eat fried bread have children who eat fried bread.
Good stuff.
Anybody that grew up in the 80s or 90s, we took it beat from that original, that original PSA campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was really fun.
Oh,
Although
yeah.
it was really hard to keep everybody to keep their faces straight in that, because it was just
those little shorts right there would blow up on TikTok. They would.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good idea.
You load those up there. Load a few of those up there, and then you can link it to your YouTube.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Because they blow. TikTok blows up. I mean, you're talking 5, 10, 15, 20,000 viewers like that. I mean, it happens fast.
Can someone please in the chat room tell Roy to lay off the TikTok? Like,
I love my native TikTok.
Not heard enough about the TikTok.
I love it. We're gonna start playing some clips. We got to start playing some TikTok clips because there's like some funny comedians on there too, like duos and stuff that are on TikTok. And I'm talking young guys. I'm talking like 17, 18-year-old guys doing their own like native shows. I mean, res shows. I mean, it's freaking good. These guys are good. They're good.
That's awesome. Do we have questions in the chat room or?
Yeah, let's on
my.
Are you gonna make us watch man boobs? Let's see. LA Native Film Festival. Let's go up a little bit.
Yes, Summer Frazier. Ego is the enemy. Yeah. Your ego is not your amigo. Napoleon Dynamite.
Who else?
Let's see. Inglewood, always up to no good. Yeah, you got that right, Glenn. Let's see.
LA Native Film Festival. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
LA Skins Fest.
What else is in there?
All right. Someone asked a good question of Kimberly, or she's going to need to run away from us.
What's that?
I said Kimberly's going to run away from us unless the chat room can give her a good question.
I'm looking at let's see. This one. We missed some up here too. Glenn threw a whole bunch in there. Red nations must choose who supports their agenda when we were talking earlier about politics. Yeah, and unfortunately, we only have two choices is the unfortunate thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe one day we'll be progressive enough as a society to get out of that wormhole of those two parties. I see tribes doing it as well. Tribes developing their own political parties and basically making the same damn mistakes that the U.S. government and state governments make with that kind of party system.
Right.
Glenn said there, at this point, red nations must stop worrying about stepping on toes. Right now is a good time to start slapping faces because the climate is ripe. Yeah, I mean, like we've said before, look, they finally changed the name of that football team. I mean, that's been a long time coming, and it just all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it just popped.
That's finally. And S Valley, they're changing the name of S Valley in California too.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So great.
I can't believe how many inquiries we're getting from people from local governments, city and even some state governments saying, this street is named something, or this, park is named something. Should we be doing something differently? And so we've been giving a lot of people just some technical assistance and some support if they need to help develop a position so that they can, make changes.
That's so great. Like I noticed, when I was living out in New York and go visit my friends, it was like hearing, like you would pass by, it would be like something head, blah, 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 something head, blah, 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 something head, cove or whatever. And it's just like my antenna is always up. And it's just like, oh, yeah, if that's a native indigenous name in a head, that probably, like, it must have been it must have been some way that the folks that colonized that area, they must have cut off the chief's head and put it out there and, to show like we're in charge.
Yeah.
And, it's just so important to know, again, when I love where we're being with land acknowledgement right now and how that's spreading, just to kind of understand the story, of the land that you're living on and the original stewards of that land. It's just, and names are important. Words are important. Words have power, just like our stories do. So it's really powerful.
Summer says, list a few Native women organizations to look into.
Great.
So do we have some that?
Yeah, I'm forgetting there's a National Indigenous Women's
NIWRC.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Resource Center.
Yep.
Which is great. They've done a lot of good work and they've been around for a while. So that's one. That's the big one on top of my list.
Same. Yeah, it's a powerful organization.
Yeah.
Beautiful women survivors that are running that. It's just extraordinary. April, for Native youth, what do you recommend pursuing for youth? For Native youth, what do you recommend for pursuing screenwriting, film direction, and production? Such a great question. We could not be in a better time, April, for anyone. Youth, it doesn't matter what age you are, honestly, because we shot Remain on an iPhone. So, and it's beautiful. Watch it if you get a chance after this on Stylehurst Collective's YouTube channel. But so you can do your own films now. And so I would suggest, no matter how old they are, I mean, if they can do an iPhone, if they can do a TikTok video, they can do a full length video or a short film or whatever. Yeah. And then there's just so many great resources now too. There's almost a teaching video on everything. There are master classes on everything. So you can learn from the best screenwriters out there. You can find anything online to help give you that direction. And then even within that, going to our indigenous storytellers in this medium, like Taika Waititi and Sterling Harjo and the 1491s and, all these, indigenous folks that are out there doing it. So you can learn their perspective of screenwriting as well. But I, as an actor and a writer, there is something very real. I mean, I think yes, we need to like wing it and just figure it out and just, have that very gut, fun, make it fun and make a video you would want to see, make a film you would want to see, make a TikTok you would want to see. That's always the thing. Don't try to catch up with anybody. Do the one that you want to see. And you can totally like, just mash up the things that you love and tell the story yourself. But also there's a craft, so like learn the craft of cinematography, learn how to set up a wide shot, learn how angles, there's a language to all of that. If you set up a camera up and you look down on somebody, it makes you feel a different way looking down or looking up where the camera, or putting somebody this side of the screen psychologically feels different than putting somebody to that side of the screen. So you can learn all that craft as far as actors, screenwriters, directors, there's a craft that you can learn as well. And in a family that you join when you want to become a television maker, any kind of, online content maker or filmmaker or television maker, you join a family there too. So it's like learning that family, learning that language. Because let's say folks out there that you want to, and there's so many, you can always go to my website. I mainly kind of make my main website my Facebook page, my public Facebook page. So just you can Facebook Kimberly Norris Guerrero, but I almost always put the casting calls and things up there, or anything that I'm hearing that goes out to our community. And anybody can go audition for those pieces, and then boom, you're on a set. But once you're on a set, you have to know, what does go back to one mean? What does report to the AD mean? What is, you can email me, message me, just ask me, but there's a way to learn that language. It's not rocket science, but it does take effort. So it's your talent and your passion combined with your good mind learning the craft. So that's kind of the triumvirate, I think. It's like, listen to your heart, follow that heart to want to make a story, understand why you're making it, who you're wanting to talk to. And then it's just a matter of moving forward and learning the craft and making it as cool as you can.
Wow, I want to take a class from you at UC Riverside.
I love teaching. I just, look at it. Here's the thing. If you look at our work, our craft work, it's not really craft, and that's such a, colonized word. But if you go back and you look at our ancient, I'm not saying just now too, but I'm saying if you go back in time and you look at our beadwork, or you look at the way that we engineered our dwellings or our teepees, or how we took the horse, right? These Spanish horses, and then we like mixed them up and bred them in a way that then made this, we're constantly taking and adapting, and then doing it at the most excellent level. Mm-hmm. That's what it to me means to be native. That's what it means to be indigenous. It's like you synthesize and then you go boom. Which to me is Taika. I think that's like, he's like, yes, give him a Marvel film and see what can happen. Let's give our native, filmmakers a Marvel film, a big, they're going to do something. I'm so excited to see Sterling and Taika's new show, so I think is it called Reservoir Dogs? Reservation Dogs? Reservoir Dogs.
Yeah, that's another movie.
That's the other one it connects to. But but it's just like, there's this, there's so much talent and so many ideas out there. So just do it.
I remember when CDs first came out, and they were really, if you flip a CD over, it just has that look to them, and they're all different colors. I remember the first time I saw Fancy Dancer had put that into his regalia. I was like, that's cool. That's cool. It's like, taking what's, taking something today, and then, hey, this thing's, look at what it does to my regalia, and he had it all over different places.
Yeah. Yes.
And it would look, and it was shining in the sun, and it was like, oh, that's badass.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm excited to see. That's what I'm going to do the rest of the night, is look at native TikTok.
Oh, you're going to love it.
Because they'll take TikTok. Our people take TikTok and just send it through the roof.
Well, and just set aside a couple hours of your time, because you will just.
You just keep scrolling and scrolling.
Excellent.
And what's funny is there'll be
fast.
PSA is like all of a sudden, like you'll be watching, different natives, and then all of a sudden you'll see one that comes up and says, "Hey, you've been scrolling for 2 hours now," it's time for you to put it down.
Yes, that's correct. We did a PSA on that too. I know. That's it. It's like love it, and then also have that time. I think that's probably been the biggest takeaway from this pandemic time is learning to be still again, and the power of being still and quiet, and trying to work that into my daily life, of taking that time and just stopping completely, and getting off, getting unplugged and just sitting with myself. And when it's not so hot like it is out here for us right now, Roy, it's 100. What is it now? It was 115 when we started. But sitting out in nature, even if it's just under a tree or whatever, but really just being able to sit with nature and just be still.
Oh, we're down to 109 now.
Jesus.
6 o'clock and it's 109.
109.
We got a question there. It says, Kimberly, in your opinion, are we better off remaining as independent in the industry or trying to Hollywood mainstream, DGA, SAG, and after the others of the alphabet soup?
What a fantastic question, April. And I think it is, I think for each individual artist, I think it's really important to tune into your true north, to your gut, and that you follow your gut. And if you sense that you should be doing this independently, then right now we could raise money amongst our family members or whatever and shoot something that's amazing, and put it up. But then you're sovereign over that story. You get to shoot the film that you want to shoot and cast it the way you want to cast it and all that kind of stuff. If you take it to the alphabet, if you take it to the streaming platforms or whatever, everybody gets a say. On the other hand, you could have this really deep sense of like, I really feel like this belongs at Netflix or Amazon. I just sold a show to Amazon as a writer. And it was like I love our executives. Our executives were amazing. Brian Sanders is head of television, and Brian Harvey produced Goliath. And I love both of them, and I trust both of them. So, but at the beginning of that conversation, it was like, is Amazon going to tell us? Be straight up. Like, are you going to? Is the system going to take our story and make it what it wants it to be, or do we get to tell our story as Indigenous people? Yeah. And he's like, no, we want your story. We want, you know what I mean? So it's just like, you have to, it's a case by case situation. It's a project by project situation. And it's an artist by artist situation. So, and then you may figure out, you know what, I'm going to stay independent and I'm going to get my voice out there. And I'm really going to help people understand, and even myself, what it is I want to say and how I want to say it. And then you can, trust me, they're going to find you. If you're doing great work and other people are finding it, you're going to be getting the call, from producers, from streaming platforms, from the SAGs and the WGAs and all that kind of stuff. So, just listen to your true north and follow that.
Mm-hmm. So my friend George, hi, George.
Hi, George.
Asking a question. He wants to know what you think of the Yellowstone series.
Oh, I haven't watched it.
I started to, and I got a little bored of it, so I didn't get to really get deep into it. I watched like 2 or 3 episodes, and then
I'm kind of, and I know this is not good. I've had some of my dear Native friends just bemoaned it so badly, and it tears my heart up when I see. And especially because I got friends on there too, right? That do the work, on Yellowstone, which I'm thrilled about. Moses Brings Plenty is on that show, who plays Charlie Soap, and I adore. And I support them. I'm so happy for them. But when I hear stories and our people aren't being represented in an authentic way, I can't watch it. It hurts my heart. Do you know I still haven't to this day watched August Osage County, the movie? Oh. Because I put that was 2 years of my life. On Broadway, and then we went to Sydney with it and London with it. And it's just like, it's just such a spiritual part of me that I saw what they did with the script. I'm like, whoa, you can't do that. It like takes the heart out of the story. So I've never watched it. So, I'm not saying I won't watch Yellowstone, and I hear people absolutely love it, which is great. And that's the cool thing about art, right? It's all subjective. But yeah, what do you think about it, George?
Yeah, George, what he thought of it. All right, George, you got to tell us. So what do you think, Kimberly? Have you had a good time on our show? Man,
I have.
I'm really grateful for your energy.
Yeah, you're awesome.
Oh man, it's been awesome. Wait, so there's one other question from April. So native film companies still wouldn't be an option? Heck yeah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some great. I mean, there's
I like what you said about going with your gut versus like, go full independent, or no, make sure you was SAG-AFTRA, and all. It's like you said, going with your gut and the situation, and your if your story is meant for your own platform or whatever, then by all means, do your own. But if there's an opportunity out there for you to work on something really special, then do that, because it's really whatever is in your gut that's telling you to go do that,
Right. It's all about allies.
It is.
It's all about allies.
So here's what George says. He's glad there's real Indians on it, but 2 of the characters are not native. We have some great actors who should be in those parts.
Yeah.
I know. A lot of them out there.
I know. Well, things are changing, and there was a really cool SAG after panel that I got to be a part of. I believe it was last October, if anybody wants to watch that. And we were talking about that. And I don't want to get into argument, but because people feel differently about this, but I am with Wilma on this, that she had this really great quote about who gets to be an Indian when they ask her about Indianness. And she's like, an Indian's an Indian. I don't care how much blood quantum. I don't care what little card they do or do not have from the government.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. So, we had this conversation, but I said, for those actors that you're not Indian, you're not native, but you could play it. Like, I am not Hispanic. I just got a call from my agent two days ago. Can you speak Spanish? And it's just like, even if I could, that's not let that person, I don't even want to go up for it, Asian, or Polynesian, which is indigenous, but it's just like, oh, but that's their story, like it's right now we're at a very precious time when sovereignty over story, I think is important. And
the days of Iron Eyes are long gone.
Wow. Bless. But he was committed. You got to admit. I mean,
well, he
married and had a son, and I mean, he was all in. But it's pretty radical. That story is radical.
It is.
Well, it's kind of like the professor that just came out as Jewish, but she's been a Black woman in academia all these years.
Oh, really?
Oh, I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
I heard that.
A writer or somebody in public?
She's in academia, and she writes books, and she's like, one of the experts on she was Bronx, African American from the Bronx, and then she kind of shifted to Afro-Caribbean. And that was her. And so she's very much evidently kind of an expert on, and she just came out like 2 days ago and was like, I'm actually a Jewish girl from, I think it was Kansas City or St. Louis or something. And that's not my, So yeah, it's just, and it's the same with me. It's like, I didn't grow up on the reservation. My cousins and my little sisters grew up on, spent a lot of time. My cousins grew up on the reservations. My little sisters spent time on the reservation. And it's like, I never want to like front like I'm some res girl, because, that's a whole nother reality,
Mm-hmm.
and one that there's just there's a lot to unpack there.
Who was the writer that got exposed for that in Colorado? He was a what was his name? He wrote Indians Are Us and
don't say it. Don't.
But he was another one that was, kind of
Ward Churchill.
Oh, Ward, yeah, Ward.
I still have a difficult time with that because anyway, I'm not.
Well, he put so much case law out there in his books, so you probably
right.
did a lot of reading and as far as that goes, because he was like he stated like tons of case law in all of his books.
They're such difficult issues because it gets in, and I think we were talking about this on a show a while back, where we're like the Indian police sometimes.
Right.
Like someone's not enough, and tribes are disenrolling their citizens because of money. Or there are some tribes that are against other tribes being acknowledged by the federal government, and because of
crabs in a bucket syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the effects of colonization too.
Yeah.
You get in that system and you forget.
Yeah, and it's we've said it before here, but Indian nations are the only nations that can't bring people into their nation, naturalize them as citizens or whatever. That's you have to have.
Weird because I anthropologically I can't say this across the board, but for so many stories I read, it was exact opposite.
Oh yeah, they brought in all kinds of other traditions.
Exactly, anybody could be adopted into the tribe, and they didn't look at you as adopted into the tribe. It's like, no, now you are Cheyenne, now you are Colville, now you are whatever, it's like you're adopted. I've been adopted by a Northern Cheyenne family, and they see me as a Cheyenne woman now. So, it's I'd love to get back to that. But when it comes down to money and fighting for crumbs, from the government's table and all that kind of stuff, it's just like, ugh.
Right.
But story helps change that.
That's right.
It does.
That's right.
Who tells the story is of utter importance.
Yes, and we're glad you're telling that story, Kimberly. We're so glad that you're out there doing this and getting your face in so many places, and with people who can help us change the stories.
That's it. And I encourage everybody, I love what you're just keep going. I know you will with Red Hoop Talk, because that's changing things, and everybody in the chat room just be inspired and inspire those around you. George said he worked with me on Jingle Dress, so that's really cool. It's an exciting thing. Filmmaking is not, it's fun, and we can do it, and anybody can get their hands on it and start telling those stories, and let's get that good medicine out there.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
Well, thank you guys. Thanks everyone.
Well, thank
you, Kimberly,
hanging out with us. We appreciate you, and yep. Big love to you. Big love to you.
Big love, Red Hoop Talk.
Right on. All right. Well, Shannon, do we want to close up now and
I think we should close up. I'm so grateful for your time and your energy to spent with us today, Kimberly, and I'm so glad that everyone was talking and active on the chats. We're next week we're going to have a man from Rosebud who is named Lynn Lapointe, who's got some really great stories for us. I think some of you in the chat room know Lynn. And what else is going on? Anything else that we need to do logistics or anything?
Not at this point.
Are you going to be with us next week, Roy?
Yes. At this point, I am going to be with us this next week.
Yay.
I'm going to Arizona, but I'm not sure exactly when yet. So I am.
Kimberly, we got to get Roy an Indian country job, because he keeps having to leave on a Sunday because of his work schedule.
Yeah. Anyway. All right, Kimberly, thank you so much. I'm going to pull you down. If you wouldn't mind just sticking around for just a couple seconds, if you got it. We're going to just finish up, and then we'll come down there in a second. Bye-bye, Kimberly. Right on.
Great show. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Shannon. All right. Well, we have to also give a shout out to who we are brought to us
Oh yeah. So everyone, thanks to you, and thanks to the Association on American Indian Affairs, the oldest nonprofit serving Indian country, for bringing us Red Hoop Talk. Kimberly, by the way, is one of our Council of Advisors members on with the association. So it was great that she was able to do this for us tonight. Yeah, that's all I got. Next week is Lynn LaPointe. He's awesome. He's another big old Indian guy that's going to bless us with his talk about Native youth. So I'm looking forward to that.
Cool. All right, sis. Well, we'll see you guys all next week on Red Hoop Talk.
Thanks, everyone.
See you. Bye.